Hello and welcome to today's online learning event on emotional intelligence, entitled What's New, What's True, Improving EQ with Behavioral Styles, sponsored by the TRACOM Group. We are very excited to be able to present this event, and thank you all for attending. And so with that, I'd like to turn the presentation over to our first speaker, Mr. David Collins. David, please go ahead.
Hello everybody and welcome to today's webinar, Emotional Intelligence, What's New, What's True, and How to Improve Emotional Intelligence Through the Use of Behavioral Styles. Today we're going to be looking at best practices in emotional intelligence training and some new research on emotional intelligence. My name is David Collins, and I'm the Vice President and General Manager of the Training Products Division of the TRACOM Group. By participating in today's webinar, you'll learn why emotional intelligence matters, how to improve it among your employees, and some specific ways to improve your organizational performance. The presentation part of our webinar will last about 40 to 45 minutes, and at the end we'll have an opportunity to take your questions after that. If you'd like, during the webinar, please take the opportunity to submit some questions to us electronically, and you can of course do so by using your keyboard. Also, keep in mind that we may refer to emotional intelligence as EQ, and others sometimes refer to it as EI for shorthand, but today, for purposes of consistency, we're going to stick with EQ. So, with that in mind, let's go ahead and get started. Today I'm going to be joined by Dr. Casey Mulqueen, TRACOM's Director of Research.
Hi everybody, I'm Casey Mulqueen, Director of Research, and I look forward to talking with you today.
And also with me here today we have Sean Essex, TRACOM's Director of Marketing.
Hello everybody, thank you for joining us for this webinar. We have quite a group today. We look forward to talking with you about emotional intelligence and learning from you on the same subject.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks, Casey. All right, so let's get started here. You know, in today's economy, which as we all know has been a very, very difficult economy for quite some time now, we're all trying to improve organizational performance the best that we can. One of the challenges that we face is most of us are operating with fewer resources than we have in the past. We're offering this webinar today as one way that you can potentially boost your organizational performance in these difficult times. So first, let's talk a little bit about EQ and how EQ actually matters in workplace performance today. So in talking about performance in the real world, businesses tend to judge performance by bottom line results, meaning profit and loss. So in the examples I want to talk a little bit about to tee up the value of emotional intelligence, I wanted to talk a little bit about bottom line performance. Let's look at one specific insurance agency that found that agents who had comparatively low EQ sold policies with an average value of $54,000, while a group of agents who were high in EQ sold policies with an average value of $114,000. That's more than twice the performance for the high EQ group. Take a look at another bottom line business performance, and this is a business that we don't even consider profit and loss, the United States Air Force, right? In order for the Air Force or any of the armed services to function, they need to be able to bring in new recruits to keep the pipeline of people that are enrolled in the military going forward. Well, in using emotional intelligence, the Air Force was actually able to predict which recruiter was going to be more successful than another. What they found is that recruiters that were high in emotional intelligence were actually able to out-recruit those that were low in emotional intelligence. And by finding this out, figuring it out, and implementing it, they were actually able to reduce the recruiting expense by $3 million. Where else does emotional intelligence play? Well, think about in the hiring process, right? So if you think about one of the more important things an organization can do, it's hiring and recruiting. And if you think about hiring and recruiting a leader is perhaps one of the most important things that an organization can do. There was a study done not that long ago that actually looked at 500 executive search candidates that were all out in the marketplace being hired for jobs. When they looked at their performance after they were in fact hired, those people that had emotional intelligence on the high side performed much better than people that had emotional intelligence on the low side. In fact, when they looked at their emotional intelligence, their prior work experience, and their intelligence levels, what they found is that the emotional intelligence and how high they rated in that was in fact the single highest predictor of how well they were going to perform on the job. So as you can see, emotional intelligence was a key variable in each one of these examples. You can see that EQ has a terrific impact on a variety of business measures and is a very important criteria to look at not only when you're hiring your employees, but as we'll learn later, Emotional intelligence is also a skill set that can in fact be trained, and if you're able to make your employees more emotionally intelligent, you can too increase their performance in their job. Today, some of the key things that we're going to discuss is specifically, what is EQ and why does it matter? EQ, is it something that can be learned? What exactly is the business case for EQ? And you'll find that we'll have a little bit of a focus on the leadership area for the purposes of this presentation to demonstrate a few things. We're going to talk about some exciting new research that's come out in the area of EQ. And then we're going to talk to you about specifically some of the things that you can do to improve EQ training by applying behavioral style. And then for the last 10 or 15 minutes, we'll all get an opportunity to go through a Q&A session together. Okay, so with that said, let's go ahead and get started, and I'm going to turn the floor over to Sean. Sean?
Thank you, David. The concepts of emotional intelligence are not new, and in fact, research on this topic goes back to the early part of the 20th century. But the term emotional intelligence was introduced by Salovey and Meyer back in 1990. It was really Daniel Goleman, a Harvard-trained psychologist and writer, who brought EQ into the mainstream. He wrote about emotional intelligence in the New York Times and in his 1995 book titled Emotional Intelligence. But it was his 1998 article in the Harvard Business Review that really sparked great interest among the business community. The key premise of emotional intelligence is that EQ skills relate to how effectively people work with others, specifically around areas including self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. And it's important to note that these skills are unique from a person's technical skills and cognitive abilities. Most important is research that shows that EQ skills are directly linked to critical business measures and individual success, even more so than traditional measures such as intelligence. Goleman did research that looked at what differentiated star performers from average performers. He found that EQ competencies accounted for the vast majority of that difference. Other research shows that IQ itself is not enough to predict business success. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that intelligence or IQ is not important. It is. But IQ and various job-specific skills are essentially entry requirements, particularly in the area of leadership and in managerial positions.
Thanks, Sean. For all of us that are on the phone here today, most of us are learning and development professionals, people with an OD background, talent management types of people. The key question for all of us is we're looking to do things that improve workplace performance, and many of those things are through training and development. So while emotional intelligence has been proven to be a very important factor in workplace performance, one of the key questions is, can we actually train our people to improve their performance in the area of emotional intelligence?